Hello, it's Laura here. I just wanted to hop on to our podcast to talk a little bit about sleep. When I became a mum, sleep was probably one of the biggest issues that we had as a family. And I quickly realised that nothing can prepare you for the lack of sleep that you're going to get. And nothing can really, I suppose, prepare you for the effects that is going to have on all aspects of your life. So I suppose one of my biggest challenges as a parent was sleep, because my eldest son, who's now 8.5, didn't sleep that well from probably when he was about one years old. As a baby, he wasn't too bad, but things sort of started to get worse when he started to crawl and started to move. And if I'm completely honest, I've blocked a lot of it out. I can't actually remember what kind of, I guess, caused it or started it. All I remember is I used to think to myself, when I went to sleep at night, I used to wake up when he woke up again, and I'd literally count the hours that I'd had to sleep. And if I could count 2 hours, I'd think, I'm winning, I'm all right. I've had 2 hours, I've had 2 solid hours, 2 in a row. That was amazing, having 2 hours in a row. When he was a year old, I went back to work at a busy advertising agency in Leeds. I had quite a long commute from Huddersfield on the M62, and it was hard. It was so hard because I was just knackered all the time. So I'd get through work, I'd get back, battle to get him to bed. Sometimes that took hours, and foolishly we got pregnant again. And when he was 2 years and 2 months old, we had our second child, who actually slept like a dream, so much better than our first one ever did. And it was a shock that he actually went to sleep and slept through, and he slept through a lot of noise that our first child was creating. So he'd be up crying and battling with me while the baby just nodded off and went to sleep. And he went into his own room quite early on because of this. And he sort of, I guess, made us realise that for the first 2 years of Joshua's life, we had, I guess, pandered to him. We didn't flush the toilet at night. We didn't brush our teeth with the electric toothbrush because we were so scared of waking him up. And once he was awake, that was it. It would take us hours to resettle him. He very rarely slept in his own bed. A lot of the time we'd give in eventually and he'd sleep with us all night. Then my then husband would move into the spare room, and I would just co-sleep with Joshua, but that kept me awake a lot of the night because he was tossing and turning and not sort of sleeping very solidly anyway. So even co-sleeping didn't really help fix things, because it still meant that I had a rubbish night's sleep. We tried lots of different things, and I'm not here to tell you what does and what doesn't work, and I am absolutely no sleep expert. We've finally got to him being 8.5 years old, and I now live separately to my ex-husband, but we've both managed to stop him coming into our bed at night, and he actually finally sleeps in his own bed. But it's taken that long to do it, and if I'm honest, the sleep problems and the lack of sleep for all of us probably, it had an effect on everything. It had an effect on our marriage. We were both absolutely knackered, and it affected the way we were with each other. It affected our alone time and our lust for each other. Even if he did go to sleep at bedtime by 10 o'clock, we were so knackered that the last thing on our mind was anything intimate. It affected my work. I was tired driving to work. I was tired while I was at work, tired coming home. And a lot of times I had a lot of extra work to do outside of the office. And, I'd battle to get him to bed for an hour, 2 hours sometimes. And then I'd be back on my computer. And that was hard, because it was hard to even just produce any form of quality work when you're that knackered. It affected friendships as well. I'd have the very rare odd occasion when I would organise something with a group of friends to go out for drinks or a meal on a Friday night. And when it got round to it, I was just so tired. I just couldn't. To me, it was a better option to get to bed early and to bank some hours of sleep rather than to go out and socialise. And looking back on it now, and looking back on it all since having some coaching with one of our experts, Kelly Thistlethwaite from Fly Mama, I think it created a lot of anxiety for me, and everything then sort of bubbled over and came from there. I didn't want to go out and socialise that much. I was worried about work, worried about friendships, worried about my marriage, and it just created a bit of a I don't know, like a boiling pot of really negative emotions. We tried a lot of different things to help Joshua sleep, a few of which I'll just give you some examples of now, because actually if you are having sleep problems with your child having difficulty getting to sleep, some of these did help. In hindsight, and obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, you can sort of think of things that would have helped, and maybe the outcomes would have been different. I would have got a sleep specialist a lot earlier on. For the couple of hundreds of pounds that you may need to spend on them, and we do have an expert in this group, Caroline Winter, who I haven't personally used myself because it was too late for that. But we were going to get somebody. We didn't want to spend the money on it, and like I said, in hindsight, a couple of £100 that may have given us more sleep over the years and just caused a lot less stress and a better environment for all of us, it would have been so worth it. I would pay £1,000 for it now, looking back. But when you're in the midst of it, I think it's quite difficult to justify spending it. But anyway, so I'm not here to say what does and what doesn't work, and obviously we have a sleep expert that will give you the actual expert advice on it. But for me, there were a couple of things. So when he was a baby and when Jackson was a baby, we used You and the Dream Sheep, which was a little lifesaver. Popped it in his cot, turned on the music, and if we went back in the night and popped it back on for him when the music had stopped, it did seem to help soothe him. So if a new mum said to me now, if you could give me 5 different products, Ewan would be number 1 on there. We use white noise, as I said, and actually even to this day now we use sleep stories. So my boys share a bedroom at my house. They have bunk beds, and at bedtime we put on, it's called Coco Sleep Stories app, and each night there's a different one that you can play. You can put a timer on it, so I tend to put it on for half an hour. 9 times out of 10 they don't even listen to the story. I'll ask them the next day and they're literally fast asleep 10 minutes into it. But it just helps to sort of drown out any other noise, helps for them to give them something to think about as they're falling asleep. And I guess now it's become part of their routine, really, so it just helps with that. I also bought so many different books about sleep. There's one, I don't know who the authors are, you'll be able to look them up on Amazon or other sites. A Bed of Your Own, that's quite a cute little story, sort of talking about actually it's better to have a bed of your own and not be in with mummy and daddy or somebody else. We also bought a book called What to Do When You Dread Your Bed, and that had like sort of different activities in it to do as well, and I seem to remember there was a magic trick in that sort of leads up to then hopefully them understanding that it's there's nothing to worry about going to bed. A really lovely one that one of my NCT friends recommended to me was the Invisible String. That helped not only with going to bed and sleeping, but also when Joshua started school and his sort of separation anxiety. And it's all about how we're still tied together and I still think about you through this invisible string. One of the massive problems we had, and had up until very recently was even once we got him to bed, we couldn't go back downstairs again and enjoy our evening because he wanted the doors open, the lights on, and he wanted to be able to see us. So if he was nodding off to sleep and suddenly jerked awake, which he did often, and he saw that we weren't in our bedroom at the time, we started all over again. So this invisible string book kind of did help with that a bit. I now live on a 1-floor apartment with the 2 boys, and it's much easier. I can finally put them to sleep and I can come back out into my own living room and watch TV. And to me, that's like freedom. You know, we went through, I want to say 7 years of putting him to bed and staying upstairs and not leaving, which was tough. It was tough, you know, for everything really. So that's it. I could honestly go on forever and talk about sleep, talk about the effects of it, talk about different things that we tried. And if I'm honest, I don't think any one thing does work. I think it's a combination of different things. I still do now the leave and check. So I'll say to them, you know, good night, give them a kiss, give them a cuddle. I'll come and check you in 5 minutes. And still, you know, if they're not really, really tired and they're not ready to just zonk out, still I'll hear them say, can you come and check me? And I'll have to go back. And sometimes it can be 3 or 4 times. And, you know, he does still wake in the night and come into my room and say, can you put me back to bed? And sometimes it's as simple as me literally walking back in his room with him, tucking him in, giving him a kiss, and that's it. He's fast asleep again. So I think some of it is just about the bit of separation anxiety that he has, that he just wants to know where I am and know that I'm close and that he's safe and going back to bed. And I would take that over anything. Obviously we want our children to feel safe and we don't want them upset in the night or going to bed. And I think we've done a lot over the years to make them feel secure and make them know that nothing's going to happen to them. They still have night lights on. And some of it, maybe we've created, like I said earlier, we didn't dare flush the toilet or use an electric toothbrush at night. And some of that is we've created that ourselves and we maybe have to live with a bit of that. But all I'm going to say is if you are having any sleep issues, whether it's a newborn, a toddler, a grown-up, I call mine grown-up children like my age, it is well worth the investment of a sleep specialist to help you because sleep affects everything. I lived through it. I'm still living through it a bit. I'm lucky that we seem to have turned a big corner. And there's always stages, and when he's poorly or when there's something worrying him about school or life, it's harder to get him to sleep at night. If we take him out of his routine and he goes out later at night, it then takes forever to get him to sleep and you feel like you're starting all again. But my one piece of advice is knowing how much it affects everything, from, like I said, relationships, friendships, work, health, your mental health and your physical health. I was knackered and I didn't have the energy to go to the gym, which made me feel even worse about my body. It affects my self-esteem and confidence, and it just affects everything. So my one piece of advice is if you are struggling, you can access all of the content that we have from Caroline on our member site, but also speak to her one-to-one. She is offering a discount. So if you speak to her, see if she thinks, she can help you. And looking back, I would take all the help I could get and spend all the savings I had to get more sleep. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's helped a little bit, even if it just makes you think, actually, I'm not alone. People have different struggles, and it used to annoy me so much when people used to say to me, oh, well, mine sleeps from 12 hours. We have absolutely no problem. We just pop them in bed and they go to sleep. But if you are having difficulties and they don't sleep like princes and princesses, you are not alone. There are so many of us out there that have struggled with it, and it's not your fault and it's not their fault. You just need to work together to find an answer and to find the support that you need to help everyone get a better night's sleep. Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.